So, Mr. Melton, we find ourselves across the row in front of the truck that you're just speaking about. So, who are we standing with now?
Yes, this is Jeff, and he's the owner of this Federal record truck that was used in World War II.
Okay.
And so he's going to demonstrate that it's his truck, and I'll assist for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a 1943 Federal Model 606D. It was an Army Air Force C2 wrecker, and what it is a 7.5 ton 6x6, and what it was designed for was to retrieve damaged airplanes and bring them back to the shop.
Okay.
The truck was considered to be an emergency vehicle because sometimes they had to use the wrecker to lift an airplane to get the crew out. So they wanted to make sure the truck could start if the battery was dead. So it's equipped with a inertia starter. Inertia starters, if you've ever watched an old movie where they're hand cranking a biplane from the side, that's an inertia starter they're using, and this truck has almost the exact same component installed on it as the original equipment.
Okay.
They need that inertia starter. You can't just put a straight crank in like for a Model A Ford or something, because the engine is a 855 cubic inch 6-cylinder gas engine. So they need the power of the inertia starter to be able to start it.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and demonstrate it. First, we're going to start the truck on the electric starter, and then when we're done with that, we're going to start it on the inertia starter.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, switch is on.
So, before we begin, point out what's going to happen.
Okay, so what's going to happen here is Steve's going to put this crank into the inertia starter, and he's essentially going to, it's like he's winding it up, but he's actually just turning the gears inside, and the momentum inside will build up. And then when he gets about 12 cranks in it, I'm going to pull this lever, which engages a coupling with this shaft here that's bolted to the crankshaft.
Okay.
And that'll start the engine on the truck.
All right.
Are you ready, Jeff?
I'm ready.
Okay. And you can see the inertia starter is still spinning. Look at it, just will wind down for maybe 2 or 3 minutes of the inertia that's keeping going there.
So, do you gentlemen know what's in there that can make it spin that way?
Diagram right there. This is identical to what is inside the inertia starter, except it doesn't have this centrifugal clutch, but everything from here back is exactly what's inside.
Okay.
It's all a series of gears and planetary gears.
Okay. And it's still going.
It's still going. Yeah, it'll keep going.
That's amazing.
And one other thing that's explain. Look at the distributor. There's all kind of spark plug wires coming out.
Sure. So this truck is a 6-cylinder gasoline engine. It has a dual ignition on it. There's 2 sets of points in the distributor, and it has 2 spark plugs for every cylinder. So that distributor cap is a Delco distributor. It's the same one they used on V12 Cadillacs back in the 1930s. And they're very expensive if you try to find one to buy.
So the reliability that they built into this engine and truck is, like you said, there was never a question if it was going to start, it seems like, right?
No, if the battery was dead, you use the inertia starter.
And then as far as the ignition system, if each cylinder had 2 spark plugs, then there's always a guarantee that it's probably more than likely going to start.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a similar system to what was on a lot of fire trucks back then too. So,
what else is unique about this truck?
Well, probably just the sheer size of it. I mean, a 2.5 ton truck you know, what most people would call a deuce and a half is a pretty common military truck. This is 7.5 tons.
Okay.
So it was, and actually the military rating on an all-wheel drive truck, they rated them for their off-road capability. On-road, it would really be a 15-ton truck because you double that capacity.
Got it. So let's have a look at the cab and maybe point some things out in there if you don't mind.
Sure. So you see a lot of levers on the floor in this cab. So the first lever is the gear shift lever. It has a 5-speed transmission with overdrive on the top gear. It has the 2 black levers forward or for the transfer case. It has a 2-stick transfer case like an old Jeep. There's an in and out of the front drive and then a high-low range in the transfer case. The stick all the way back is the parking brake. And then over on the end, there's 2 more sticks, and those are for the power takeoffs. There's a separate power takeoff for the wrecker boom, and there would be another one. It originally had a winch on the back, and there was another power takeoff for that.
Wow.
So the power takeoff for the wrecker comes right off the transfer case, and right there, and the PTO for the winch would come off the transmission.
Okay.
These trucks were geared very low. The rear gears are 10-22 to 1. So the top speed of this truck, even when new, was 35 miles an hour. It's licensed and insured, and I can drive it down the road, but I don't go faster than about 25, just because it's pretty old.
Right.
So we don't want to hurt anything.
So what happened to the gear that was on the frame?
Well, this truck went through a few different owners after the war. In 1953, Matt's Garage in Elkhart, Indiana bought this truck, probably government surplus, and they used it for many years. Sometime, and I don't know what the dates were, sometime it was sold to Hamilton Towing in South Bend, Indiana. I think they're the ones that took the wrecker equipment off of the truck.
Okay.
From there, it's a little murky, but somehow after that, the truck ended up in a junkyard. And a gentleman was driving by the junkyard, he saw the truck, and inquired about it. They told him he had a title for it. So he jumped in the truck, he bought it, and he drove it home from the junkyard. So he used it to move big boats around on his property. Somebody else bought it after that, and I bought it from that owner.
Okay.
I thought I was going to use it as a parts truck for another one of these I have. I have another one with the wrecker on it, but it needs a lot of work, needs an engine and stuff.
And explain, did you have found a wrecker
yes,
for this?
I have.
Boom.
But anyways, I brought this to a show and people really like this truck, so I decided not to part it out. We're just going to preserve it the way it is. And I found a original wrecker boom for it up in Georgia, original Garwood wrecker boom, just like it was on this originally. So we've got that home, and we're trying to sort that out now to get everything working on it before we put it on this truck. So hopefully by next year's show, we'll have this truck with a wrecker on it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is very, very exciting.
So are the pinto hooks normally set up that way?
This
with a spring in there?
Well, this original, yeah, they are.
Okay.
That's original, but this whole rear cross member has been moved forward.
Okay.
It would have been back here originally, and there would have been a rear bumper on this truck.
Okay.
And the rear winch on this was actually just ahead of this rear cross member down underneath. It was underslung.
Okay.
The rear winch on these is pretty rare today because when after the war, when the private towing companies got these trucks, they took these winches out and used this drive to put like a 50-ton winch up on the deck.
Okay.
Because they use these trucks mostly for recovery operations more than towing. So the rear winches are really hard to find.
When people come to the show, other than the Inertia Starter, what do people say that they really enjoy about this truck?
Well, one thing that I get asked about a lot, these are Preco Gruss air springs, and everybody wonders what these are about. They're kind of like an air shock. The front spring shackle connects directly to the bottom of them, and they're air over oil. So under here is just a little valve, just like on your car tire, and you put the air in, and it's supposed to raise and lower the suspension.
Interesting.
Now these are frozen up. I put 150 pounds to both of them, and they didn't budge. So.
Yeah.
So that's something else that'll need work sometime.
So that's the equivalent of a modern day airbag.
Kind of,
air
yeah.
suspension.
Yep, kind of is, something like that. And another unique feature of this truck, if we want to come around the other side, if you ever see a picture of one of these trucks and somebody's sitting here with their arm out the door, just like when you're driving. He's not the driver. This is a 4-man cab, and there's room for a person to sit to the left of the driver. You see how the steering wheel is offset?
I would have
So
never
someone
noticed
can
that.
actually sit here next to the driver.
That's pretty cool. And if the driver doesn't like that guy sitting on his left, he can boot him out and
I guess,
have
yeah.
a little more room.
Open the door and kick him out. I don't know.
That's awesome. All right, Jeff, Steve, thanks a lot for the tour of this truck. It was really cool.
Well, thank you for being here, Chris. It's been a delight to have you join us here today.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Chris. We
You got
really
it.
appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing it out. And we'll see you next year.
All right.
Okay.